Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. And as I'm sure you're all aware, one of the topics dominating headlines for the past couple weeks has been the disastrous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. There's been a lot of finger pointing at the Biden administration, and the president's approval rating has plummeted as a result. And to be fair, much of this criticism is well deserved. Leaving behind thousands of Americans and Afghan nationals who assisted coalition forces over the past 2 decades to essentially fend for themselves as the capital has been overrun by Taliban forces is clearly reprehensible. But there's plenty of blame to spread around, and also some lessons to be learned. The first and most obvious of which is that there is a steep cost to military occupation in distant lands for vague objectives. This is a lesson empires have been learning the hard way for thousands of years, and yet, for some reason, we keep repeating the same mistakes, despite the admonitions of our founding fathers to have trade and commerce with all nations, and to not become involved in foreign intrigues. If only Dick Cheney and his sidekick George Bush had studied Britain's disastrous loss in the First Anglo-Afghan War, or if they had paid attention to what happened during the Soviet Union's attempted occupation in the 1980s. Curiously enough, that's the very same conflict that saw us fund and support the Mujahideen forces commanded by the likes of Osama bin Laden, through programs such as Operation Cyclone. Even if they had simply watched The Princess Bride, perhaps they could have avoided Vizzini's classic blunder and not gotten involved in a land war in Asia. But sadly, our leadership did not heed the lessons of history, and here we are today, 20 years and billions of dollars later, and the Taliban has more control over Afghanistan than ever before. But there's another lesson to be learned, one that we should all pay heed to, and that lesson is, how can we expect a government that botches this withdrawal so badly to manage our economy? As difficult as extracting ourselves from a 20-year war halfway around the world is, something as complex as the U.S. economy is exponentially more complicated and difficult to manage. I would venture to say that the U.S. economy, or any economy for that matter, is actually impossibly complex for anyone, especially the government, to manage. That is why central planning always fails. And if you don't think that the $4.5 trillion in infrastructure spending that has been proposed does not equate to central planning of the economy, you're delusional. That's almost a quarter of total US GDP, and the folks deciding how to spend the money are the same ones leaving behind billions of dollars of military equipment for our enemies to capture and utilize. The fact that the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that was just passed was a whopping 2,702 pages shows just how impossibly complex these plans can become. I mean, how many of the legislators voting on this bill do you think actually read this thing? A handful? 1? 0? Your guess is as good as mine. But when it comes to politicians, one thing is clear. They find it very easy to spend other people's money, particularly when it buys them some votes in the next election. And I highly doubt any of them are concerned about the frivolous spending and inefficient allocation of scarce resources that these bills all but guarantee. What they should be concerned about is the gargantuan levels of debt that we continue to accumulate. Because, of course, these spending bills would be bad enough if we were just squandering our nation's savings to line the pockets of lobbyists and special interests. But the fact is that we don't even have any savings to squander. No, we'll just be tacking on some more trillions to our already staggering national debt. And real quick guys, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. It helps spread the information and I really appreciate it. So just remember, if you're a US taxpayer, that $28.6 trillion is your debt. You're the one on the hook for it. The dollar itself is just a make-believe fiat currency. So what's really backing up all that borrowing is your ability to pay taxes in the future. And when you see that figure, $28.6 trillion, doesn't it just sting a little bit more to know that a nice little chunk of that debt was spent procuring thousands of rifles, grenades, grenade launchers, Humvees, and even a few Black Hawk helicopters that now belong to your friendly neighborhood Taliban fighter? I know it does for me. And at this point, it seems like we are well committed to the path of printing and spending. And who cares what the money gets spent on? We can always print more, right? So what's the real takeaway from all of this? What can we do as individuals? Well, we can get our hands on some real money. The kind that has to be extracted from the earth and can't just be printed on demand. Money with real intrinsic worth. Money with thousands of years of history as a store of value. Because if we stay on the path we're on, this stuff here, well, it's not going to be worth much for long. Of course, paper always has one fallback use, but honestly, for that, I prefer this. And the dollar might not even be good for wiping your butt anymore soon if the Fed is able to bring in the digital currency it keeps talking about. So stack some silver, guys. Get out of this fiat funny money that enables these crazy wars and insane levels of debt. Remember, if we had sound money, we wouldn't be able to get into these messes overseas in the first place, because the cost would be apparent and no one would be willing to foot the bill. But as things are, spending like we've never seen before will continue to be financed via inflation and the debasement of the dollar, and the endgame is not going to be good for those who have their wealth stored in paper. So don't be that guy. Get some physical, get prepared, and sit tight, because as crazy as the world is now, it's only getting crazier. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more about the dangers of reckless spending and inflation, then check out this video right here. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker out.